Welcome to Winning the Game of Life. Known as Jungleman at the poker table, Dan Cates has gone from being the bag boy at McDonald's with no friends and a dead-end future to winning over $11 million in online poker, over $7 million in live tournaments, and is a World Series of Poker champion. He has found fame, fortune, been to incredible places all over the globe, and connected with some amazing people. It looks like Dan has won the game of life, but that is not the way he sees it. Dan sees winning as doing his part to help everyone in the world win. He knows he can't do it alone, though. He knows it's going to take a collective effort with anyone that wants to see the same thing. Join us each week as Dan starts the conversation to do just that. On the show, Dan will interview incredible individuals that have made the impossible possible. Those that have won the game of life, and those that want to help others win as well. Hit subscribe and follow Dan's journey on Instagram at @TheDanCates. Let's explore anyone and anything that can help make this world a better place, increasing the odds of us all winning the game of life. And now, here's your host, Dan Cates. Welcome back for part 2 of this conversation. If you haven't checked out part 1, be sure to check it out.
In fact, I was recently reading an article that talked about something like the God's eye view, which takes into account the whole picture of many sectoralized industries. And basically, at the very smallest level, it's really hard to see that certain values like being good to people are being honest, say, in your portrayal of your social media profile and things like that are really, how can you say, necessarily bad. But in the long run, in the super long run, or in the God's eye view, you can see in economics and let's see what other areas, like the beauty competitions you see today. Liv Bowery actually was commenting on this, how beauty competitions are getting really, really out of control. Social media is distorting our perceptions of what beauty is. I mean, there's all sorts of examples, but you can see that these values that we consider to be inherently good, or can feel that they're good, ultimately do contribute to the ultimate well-being of everyone. And that's what I believe. And I think, I mean, on this, I personally feel on this, in this way, we're totally on point. As far as edge is concerned, I also, to be clear, I was not viewing edge as something that's like exactly mathematically defined, just that there's something within your control that you can do in your actions every day that puts your experience and the experience of everyone else, and again, ultimately your experience, up a little bit more than if you take the shitty route, if that makes sense. It's just that there's something in control, and it's indifferent of the variance of life that you can do to have a little bit better experience eventually, if that makes sense. Does this make any sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think I understand your point.
Okay. Are we on the same page?
I actually try to not spend too much energy with the entire control idea, because I feel it's something that I find it interesting to hear different viewpoints, but I also feel like there's only kind of the viewpoint of like a scale of how much control we believe we have. You know, some people believe, oh, there's no control, it's pure variance, and some people believe, oh, everything, you know, is your actions and full control. I think I probably am more on the side of there is no control. Like, I don't think we look at something and then decide, oh, we do A or B, but also I feel it's not something that will ever help me, you know, like if let's say I know for certain that's true, I would still do the same things I would be doing right now. So I feel it's not a very, it's an intriguing, but not a very helpful question for me.
So what do you think is helpful for you and for everyone else?
That's a great point. I feel the most simplest form for me is trying to center myself around what I kind of feel. I feel that in terms of my personal development, I feel that I can have the most impact if I just focus on the things at hand. Let's say it like this. So the people I engage with, the projects I'm working on right now, my well-being, and I realized like I was doing way too many things. You know, I was involved in a lot of projects. I was doing a lot of things, a lot of plans, a lot of traveling, and I'm realizing if I really try to focus on these things, like how am I feeling right now? How am I feeling towards this? And then when I do something, like do it really present and conscious, then life is full with much less things. And that to not overload my life and to be really present in the things I'm doing, I guess that's the really basically everything I'm doing. And it's actually quite simple. Like if I would tell you about everything I'm doing, like it's not extravagant or crazy. It's like quite straightforward and becoming less crazy or
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of doing lots of extravagant and many things myself and coming to a similar realization. But I personally struggled with what exactly are the things, and then kind of come to a conclusion. It's certain things are really hard to practice. But go ahead. You had something to say?
Yeah. Maybe regarding, because you just mentioned that, I feel the hardest part for me was I thought about it too much. It's like just what you mentioned around, I had so many things where I started thinking first of what I should be doing now. It's like, okay, let's say I have this idea that, I would like to build something. And it's like, okay, what am I building? Like, is it a company? It's like, where do I, and then if it's a company, where do I incorporate it and who do I build it with? And like, how do I set it up and how do I fund it? And like, now you can already see how much energy it's just going into the idea.
A lot of rabbit holes, or a lot of the streams, or whatever you want to call them.
Exactly. And now it's literally just like, I try to actually do the opposite. And I didn't do that before. Before I'm more a dreamer personality. You know, I'm visualizing things and I'm in my head, and I actually actively try to bring myself in the opposite direction. Just be like, what's the most simple form of the thing that I want to do? And it's like, okay, when it was about crypto, is okay, like what is the most simple form? Is it like, because then I also understand is like sometimes things sound interesting, but actually I can't really boil it down to something. And then maybe it's because I don't understand, or maybe it's because it actually doesn't really make much sense. And there's there's so much learning in this thing of like, okay, actually, sometimes it's really simple that I just want to do one specific small thing, but I build an entire company to just do this one thing, you know, and I can actually get this one thing much easier. Is I can consult another company and just do this one thing, and that's it. That's all I want to do. And that's often actually what I learned now is sometimes I just want to, you know, build something with my hands, and then I try to do a little workshop around how to build a chair, or like do something else. And that is so rewarding for me, rather than trying to spend like 100 hours around the surrounding, let's say like this.
Behind learning how to build a chair from scratch or something? I'm not sure what you mean by the surrounding.
Yeah, I made a poor example, but for example, a lot of the businesses I built, the core of it I really liked. Mm-hmm. And then I spent 80% of the time doing things I don't like so much to enable the thing I really like.
That's what you get other people to do.
And it's just a lot of wasted time. Yeah, but then oftentimes it doesn't work out that way. And then you have the responsibility to, because, you know, it's my company, then it's like, okay, someone didn't do the job the way we intended it. And then you need to find someone else. Or so really seeing that it's not that easy to just, you know, this is the idea and you want it to happen, and then you tell 3 people to do it exactly that way. That's not how how it plays out normally. So what I realize is oftentimes, for me at least, things can be much simpler. As if I want to do something, and if I'm excited about something, there's a much simpler way.
A much simpler way to what? A much simpler way to what?
Sorry, I think a much simpler way than building a business on top of it or with it.
A much simpler way than building a business. Oh, okay. But what would you do instead?
So, for example, I'm really excited about bringing people together. Like I really love hosting dinners, or like I host events regularly where I invite interesting people, and I'm really excited also about physical spaces and bringing people together and designing the spaces and architecture, and I'm excited about meeting new people. So one of my businesses was actually like building a physical space in Vienna, kind of like a community space where I bring together exciting artists and musicians and entrepreneurs and like craftsmen, and there will be like a restaurant in there and an event space and so on. So kind of like a big facility. And what I saw there is I'm still pretty excited about that, but oftentimes I overcomplicated it by trying to build this idea rather than actually doing the thing, and like running an event, and like out of the event then build, like then later on this comes. But like I realized that no, wait, let me just start and do, an event a month or every 2 months, and then later on I have hundreds of people who know each other and they're excited about it already. And like this is the thing I realized is do first, like get out there, do it, and then things happen. And if I do the thing that I believe at the core of it that I'm excited about, then the ball will get rolling. But if I spend too much time with the idea and it's just like, it's like 1 year of planning and then like nothing really happened, it's just I realize that I learn much faster and progress much faster if I just get straight into doing the essential thing that I wanted to do. I didn't explain it very well, but I'm much different in my style of working than I was years ago.
Yeah, I will say that I'm a fan of that idea of bringing together a lot of interesting people, although it was almost like too fascinating in my experience of being at these sorts of things. That being said, as simple as it seems that conversations with people actually solves a lot of problems, and getting ideas from other people. That's what I found myself. Going back to the theme of alone, we're not that great. We're cool. Or actually, excuse me, I changed my mind. Alone, we're great, but together we can be much more. Yeah, I still don't quite know what you mean by essential thing. It just seems like you just narrowed your focus. Is that accurate to say, or you?
I did narrow my focus, but I really mean it more. Let's take a business. I think it's a better example to do it in another business. So if we take a pharmaceutical company,
yeah,
their goal is not to help someone get healthier.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it, right? Like if their goal would be to help people get healthier, there would be many, many more things that they could do that are very essential to that goal.
Yeah.
And that's where you can see is that pharmaceutical companies have nothing to do with people getting healthy anymore, because they do nothing of these essential things. And what I mean by that is oftentimes I have an idea, but then I don't do the essential thing that I believe I should be doing for that idea. If I'm excited about, I want to be helping people, and I could do that, and I could do that, and I could do that, but I could also start with something very simple and just do that.
Yeah.
And just start doing, instead of like thinking about it or doing something else, or like I feel it's oftentimes people build these ideas or these wrong images of things, but rather than like actually doing the quintessential thing that
Okay. So it sounds like people should just do the thing and not do these like things that can go around these roundabout ways of getting there. Like, I don't know, like what's a good example? Like if someone is trying to jump really high, they'd first start with jumping and not do all these like secondary things until they get to a certain point with jumping. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's one part, but it's also that they lie in bed and they dream about jumping. They're like, oh, jumping high would be so amazing, rather than getting out on the fucking training ground and just going for it.
All right, yeah, action and decisiveness. Yeah, we're on board with that.
Yeah, it's really not so much about taking that like, oh, you maybe do the something less effective, like that's then the next step, but I really mean it. And like I've been dreaming so much about things. Oh, I could do that, and I could do it this way, and it could be this, and oh, this could be so big, and this, instead of just going out there not thinking about how big it could be, and just like doing the really simple thing and then doing that again and again and again and again and seeing what comes of it.
With a mistake of mine, I have a mistake of mine that may be relevant. And in a moment, I don't want to spend too much time on myself, but basically I decided to like try to build like an image and like build my name in like just general things and try to make more and more money, and ultimately, in order to ultimately make a difference in the world. But then I realized that all those things made me look really ostentatious, even though I wanted attention. I was getting the wrong kind of attention. And what I should have done was just actually start doing, the right good things that were, is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. It's just, now I think it's a lot of people in my surroundings say this thing like, yeah, I do this now, and then in 2 years I have enough money to go on holidays, like do a world trip. And I'm just like, man, just, you have enough money already. You can go back to work at any time. Like just book a trip and go. Like
just do it.
If that is the thing, yeah, just if that is what you want to. And it's really the funny part about it is, if I reverse engineer my poker career, that's what I did. There was no point in time in poker where I planned ahead and thought I would be, super successful at it. It's like I went out there, I enjoyed it, I did it. I did it again, I did it again, I did it again. 10,000 hours later, I was good at it. I didn't, like, obviously I planned a little bit and I set some challenges and so on, but I never planned to be successful with it. And I think every successful person telling you that they plan to become successful with it, I think they're bullshitting. So I think it's really about, you get lucky, you do things you like, and things work out or they don't, and then they might work out the next time. But like, I think it's really just about getting in there, and like, if you do the things that you enjoy, I think at some point it will compound. That I just really believe that.
I do intuitively think you're right, and definitely from my experience, you're right. And yeah, for my own shitty example, I was throwing a bunch of parties and like DJing. I mean, I wanted to do it anyway, but this was like somehow for the greater good, I guess. And then I realized, wait a second, I'm just like doing all this like random stuff and not anything for the greater good. Let's do some charity stuff. I'm going to talk to you about that stuff in a moment, because apparently you've got a little bit of a history of nonprofits. I have many thoughts on that, but what businesses are you actually involved
in? A variety, actually. So I did build. Yeah, I did build, I would say, 6 companies as co-founder, and then I invested in about 20. And the ones I'm actively involved in right now, in the poker world, it's Pokercode and Odin. So Pokercode is my coaching or my community, And Odin is like a solver tool. And then outside of the poker world, actually nothing where I have an active role right now. So mostly just Prime Mind we built a couple of years ago, which is a mindset coaching app with Elliot Rowe. And then this community space I told you about, that was a project I put on ice now with Corona, since meeting people wasn't or isn't really possible, but I will build that at a later point in time, I think, in my life. And besides that, I would say it's mostly companies that I am in at this point in time.
All right. Well, it's pretty impressive track record, but I mean, I should expect no less from basically a businessman right now. I mean, you are a legit businessman, 6 companies. Like, you could like theoretically interest in private games, and maybe you already have your own private parties. And I don't know. I haven't seen you in a tournament in a while.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that the number matters so much. I think it actually more shows that I went in there not really knowing what not really knowing much about the space, not really knowing much about my personal preferences. And actually, one thing about business that I think is just really underrated is knowing your work style and knowing how what type of way of working you enjoy. Like, I think that is just, nobody talks about this, but you have so many options of designing your work in a way that is good for you. And it took me quite a bit to understand, software company is a totally different beast than a physical product company. Than like you can name, dozens of different industries where the way you will be working will be totally different. So I learned a lot in these years.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that myself. I personally don't understand really the process of figuring out like your role in something that's really nebulous. I mean, that's kind of the same thing again with life, is like, what do like a lot of people do? Like, a lot of people are wondering what the hell should they do? I personally think it goes back to literally just going in there and doing it, and just like trying a bunch of stuff until something like clicks with you emotionally. In life, I am curious about the process, entrepreneurially speaking, just because it seems a lot more solvable than the life problem. Yeah. So how did you figure that out? How did you figure out what you were suited to do, or what was best for you to do? Because I would also think that a lot of people want to do the same thing. A lot of people maybe want to be a boss, or or want to like not sit at a desk. Yeah. So how do you answer that question?
Learning by doing, but it's more what I would do now and less what I did. So what I did was really just, pick people I trusted and started doing things with them. Like, that was literally what we did. And then what I would do now is very different. I would highly recommend to get into an environment of people who have a lot of experience. So if I would start now again, then I would try to figure out who the most inspiring people within, just in the area of how you work, So friends of mine are really strong in the remote work scene, basically, where it's about, lots of crazy popping up companies who become unicorns in like 12 months, 24 months. And like, one of them just hired like 800 people in a year, So there's like these crazy
to hire 800 people, but I don't know. It seems like the kind of thing that would backfire.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they're doing pretty well, but it's like looking at that, right? How do they do that? What type of personalities in terms of leadership does it take? What structure does it lead to? I feel it's much easier to look into like 5 different companies and see what you like and what you don't, rather than trying to make the experience yourself, because it's much slower if you do it yourself.
No, that's
So what I would do right now is just like take 4 weeks and look into a company, and then take 4 weeks and look into another one, and just see like, you know, do you like more software? Do you like more hardware? Do you like remote work? Do you like, you know, which type of culture? Do you like, you know, more, because it's crazy different. It's like, if you are in a gaming studio, your calls, your people, your content of work will be entirely different than if you are in a SaaS, like in a software development company, or if you are in a trading company, or if you're, you know, everywhere it's entirely different, just because the personality necessary and the content of work is so different. So I totally underestimated how different the environments would be. Like my dream environment is more of a, I don't like to have lots of operational structural things. So I love the creative part. I love talking with designers. I love talking with creatives of all kinds. And like my dream scenario would probably be a gaming studio. You know, if I would develop a game, like that would probably be my favorite environment. But like I didn't test out enough environments and needed to make the experience myself.
You know what? At least that's relevant to myself, but actually I've been more and more interested in games because I'll tell you in a second why. Well, first of all, poker is a game, so there's that. Well, let's go back to this whole idea of, let me think for a second. Let's go back to this whole idea of it. Yeah, let's go back to this whole idea of how can we make people win at the game of life. Let's start with, do you try to orient your businesses in that way, or is it they're just more like kind of arbitrary fascinations, or do you have some ultimate goals in mind, or is that even a goal of yours? Let's put it that way.
I would say subconsciously somehow it is. Like consciously it's not that I say like, oh, I need to do, you know, like, I don't know, do good. Like I wouldn't say that, but I feel subconsciously it's a pretty big driver apparently, because I feel really good when I do things where I feel like someone is growing. Like coaching, for example, when I do coaching for Pokercode, I really enjoy that. I really feel like the people are really genuine and very positive, and I really enjoy when I see like, oh, they progress and they have a better approach to poker, like more healthy for them. You know, it's also if you turn a losing player into a winning player and it changes like their some capacity, like that is just a really nice feeling. And now it's more about doing this on scale. It's like, how do I build something that, like Prime Mind was the same, getting this feedback of people who have insomnia or, you know, can't sleep, and then they listen to our app and it helps them sleep. Like these are these mini experiences of like, oh, this is really awesome. Huh?
That's pretty crazy.
It's like, I would say that at least was always the driver for me to that really made it awesome. You know, like money was one thing, but it was really more about like, oh man, like there are people who really love this, like who really somehow get something out of this. Like that was mostly the driver. And I think the next company or the next project I will be involved in, I want to do that more at scale, because poker coaching is like, in the community it's nice, but it's limited in scale. And I feel doing something where there's this growth aspect for people, or fun or excitement in some capacity, and it reaches, you know, millions of people like that, I would be pretty excited about that.
Well, I feel like there may be something that I can add to this, but it's a little bit nebulous as to how it would be realized and executed. Because let me tell you a fun fact. I've been contemplating what it is that creates the biggest impact possible, because lots of ambition and lots of dreaming. I come from America. We're a place of dreamers. Okay, we dream, shoot for the stars, all that stuff. And it's kind of a tough question to answer. And I mean, even like, what is impact? Part of it is something like this. This is actually, making this podcast is partly for my own self-growth, because part of helping the world is helping oneself. So there's all that aspect, but let's focus on helping the world for a moment, and how to, what actually it is that helps the world in terms of like a sector. So for a long time, experts seem to go back between education, health, and energy, because you need energy to do stuff. You need to be healthy to do stuff also. And you need education to do a lot of things in the real world. But the first two, you need to be healthy, obviously, to like live, and you need energy to move. And yeah, so for a while they cycled it back between those, but then as of recently, the idea that actually what it is sport that creates the biggest impact. And then if you think about age groups, it's obvious that helping the children is the biggest impact. I don't know if you're thinking about things on this angle, but you said you want to do something on scale. But this is the latest thing that I feel like there's really something to. Well, first of all, like through poker, I mean, it seems feasible. We could argue that many people that at least had success, or like it could be said that many positive values are learned through poker and through gaming. Gaming and sport aren't that far away. The only thing that sport lacks is physicality. Let me take this back a step and explain why sport. Are you following?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, sport, because it's easy to have a lot of energy in it, generates a lot of health by just participating in it. And there is a version of education that comes with it. It's more like an experiential kind of education where people learn how to deal with real life situations, because the games are kind of like abridged versions of reality, and that you deal with all these sorts of emotions and stuff in the context of these games. Does this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
They're not obviously perfect representations, but that's like one way of looking at it. That at least works pretty well, in my opinion. Maybe someone will disagree. There's some kind of, I want someone to correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you can do it. Anyway, so basically, through emotions, you learn values, and through sports, you learn values and emotional intelligence of sorts over time, which you can't really teach in books and all that. You also get healthy. I don't exactly know the relationship to energy, but in games, there's kind of a similar parallel, and everyone wants to play them, which is really a key thing, because it's much easier to get people to do things when they want to. I imagine you've learned in your business track record. So something at scale that people could easily benefit from on a massive scale probably has something to do with gaming, and gaming is really huge these days. So just a thought for you and for the audience, maybe even to be a little bit aware of what they learn in games, and to think of how it applies to life in a beneficial way, and taking away the bad stuff, which hopefully people learn in an easy way. Do you have any thoughts on what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty interesting. Gaming was actually one of the first things, like games in terms of playing something, was definitely one of the first things that came to my mind. So maybe there's a connect there.
Yeah, I think there is something for multiple reasons. But we'll have to see if something happens with that. I'm personally interested in figuring out what can work on a mass scale in this area, and thinking about how to like make mass impact. Is there anything you would like to talk about more with your businesses, or involvement in nonprofits, or any passions you have, or anything you'd like to promote?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Well, guys, it's been Fedor Holz, and with great gems of business and poker wisdom for us all. I think so, really. I do. I've been pretty impressed. I didn't expect that. I'm like, wow, this guy's is a legit businessman. I didn't know like to what extent you were involved in business, but yeah, great job carrying over your success in poker and business. And thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Dan. And yeah, it was a fun conversation.
All right. See you all later.
See you later.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Winning the Game of Life. Tune in next week for another great episode. Of course, hit subscribe and follow Dan on Instagram @TheDanCates.